With the Planet Fitness Black Card, you don't just get a great workout, you get a great perk out because your membership is packed with perks. For $1 down and $24.99 a month, you'll get perks like access to any of our 2,400 clean and spacious locations. Bring a friend anytime and both work out with tons of equipment that'll give you that big fitness energy. Relax in the Black Card spa and more. Work out and perk out with the PF Black Card. Join for just $1 down and $24.99 a month.
Join the judgment-free zone today. Deal ends Thursday, August 10th.
See Home Club for details.
Howdy, y'all, and thanks for up-thrusting the volume on this, the latest episode of Spectales. I'm your stuffed and basted host, Jake, along with my co-host and mashed potato extraordinaire, Jesus. What's going on, Jesus?
I'd be remiss if I didn't say that I'm not a cannibal as a fellow spectator, Todd. I do not eat mashed potatoes. Thank you very much. But it is Thanksgiving, so we might give a pass because that's part of the traditional Thanksgiving feast. So everyone, I hope you guys have a great Thanksgiving.
I could do some tater tots with some gravy on it. I'd chow down on those.
Did you say you could eat some spectators? Is that
no
what
tater tots?
No, I don't know. Go check the
tots.
tape on that, guys, because that's not okay from Jake.
Now, if this is your first time listening to Spectales, thank you for giving us a listen. Spectales is a comic book podcast that has collectors and creators. What's your grail tale? Each week, we explore new stories about the comic book grails we love, the epic journeys behind how they were obtained, and how they inspired new creativity.
We also dive into some comic book speculation and how, as collectors, we can help the hobby pay for itself.
This week, we know the turkeys are gobbling all the way home into the ovens across the country, but we're still not quite over the howling good Spooktober season.
Which is exactly why we invited Rob Saucedo onto the show. Rob works as a film programmer for Alamo Drafthouse and authored Fangoria's first ever webcomic series, Werewolf.
I know we love talking about comics on this show, Jesus, but damn, was it a lot of fun to pick Rob's brain on how they go about selecting films to run at the Alamo Drafthouse theaters. And of course, we had to ask him about the indie horror sensation Terrifier 2.
I mean, we didn't have to because
it was required.
Terrifier 2 is an acquired taste. And if you guys don't know about it, make sure you're ready whenever you either Google it or go watch it.
But between you and I, right? Like you and I had already been talking about it. We had to ask him. Now, we didn't have to include that in a recording for the spectators out there, but we did it anyway, right?
Yeah, we had to. We really did have to, if you think about it.
So enough with all this teasing. It is time to give the listeners what they're here for. So this year, we'd like to say how immensely grateful we are to all you spectators out there. We could really not do this show every week without you. Happy Thanksgiving to all from both of us. This is episode 68.
This is a conspiracy. That's what this is.
Just begging to course its way through your veins.
Let's just for a moment speculate, shall we?
You're into comic books, aren't you?
I'm a nerd.
But you do like comic books.
Comic books aren't just for sad nerds anymore.
Do you think we need one more?
Strange things are afoot at the Circle K.
Do you think we need one more?
Objection, calls for speculation, move to strike.
This is a bad idea. This is a bad idea.
All right, we'll get one more.
Spectales, a comic book podcast with Jake and Jesus.
What's going on, spectators? Welcome back to the here whole sensation we like to call Spectales. This week, we're joined by a man who boasts the tantalizing titles of comic writer, film programmer at Alamo Drafthouse, and werewolf evangelist. Of course, I'm talking about the one and only Houstonian, Rob Saucedo. Rob, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to being on the show.
Yeah, we're very excited to have you here. Another Houstonian here to bully Jake from Nebraska out of here. And also a werewolf or lycanthrope. Lycanthrope, is that the word, right? Lycanthrope enthusiast as well. Both Jake and I both like werewolves. So yeah, man, we're really excited to have you on and to talk some comics with you.
Yeah, no, let's go. It's looking forward to this.
So, Rob, let's really dive into a little bit more of your background. So, a programmer for the Alamo Drafthouse. Let's start with that one because I love movies. Obviously, Jesus and I, we do a comic book podcast, but we talk movies all the time on here. You probably get to see more movies than anybody. Would you say that's fair?
Yeah, well, I used to tell people, "Oh yeah, no, my job isn't that I watch movies." But recently, my job did shift, and yes, that is now my job is to watch movies, and so it's pretty great. I love movies. I've loved movies for a long time, and as part of my role, I really focus on watching as many of the new movies as possible, and then helping the Alamo Drafthouse decide which movies we're going to play in our theaters.
Oh, that's actually really interesting because I definitely have, I guess, a little anecdote. Rob and I initially met on Twitter. I was reaching out to him for a bunch of other stuff as far as writing craft, and also we were talking about the movie theaters during the pandemic. And I remember asking you some questions about it and your thoughts on the process of what would happen to theaters during that time, and if we were going to get the full bounce back to how it was beforehand. And I think we've seen some of that come back already, or starting to come back already.
Mm-hmm.
My question to you right now, because I think it's really relevant, is like, for example, Terrifier 2, right? That thing has like super word of mouth. Were you on it ahead of time? Were you like, hey, we need to put this on here. We need to do this faster to get people on? Or how does that process work when something is like burning through word of mouth and people want to get to it? Or is there like a, hey, it has to prove itself first? Like, what does that process look like?
Yeah, that's a great example. So I had never seen the original Terrifier. I had been aware of it, of course. The Art the Clown is a horror icon at this point, but we had gotten an email from the distributor about a month before the movie was supposed to come out, asking if we'd be interested in playing the sequel. So I sat down and made a day of it. I watched the original for the first time, and then I watched a screener of the new film. And I definitely saw why there is an appeal and an audience for these films. The idea of a 2.5-hour slasher film took me by surprise. I didn't know if audiences were going to be in for it, but I definitely knew that there was going to be an audience for this film. And so we found as many places as we could in the Alamo circuit to play the movie. And I'm very happy that we were able to be a part of this film's tremendous success. And I think a lot of credit goes to the distributor for understanding that a movie like Terrifier needs to take a very specific approach to how it finds an audience. A lot of distributors might have taken a movie like this and released it on video on demand the same time as they released it theatrical, or like dictated, well, we know it's a 2.5-hour rated R hard, or actually I think it's unrated horror film, but you're going to have to play it for a full schedule. That means like shows at 10 a.m. where this movie is not going to find an audience. Instead, the distributor came to us and said, play it at the times where it makes sense, like the evening shows, and give it as many screenings as you can. And just the idea is to keep it on screen as long as possible leading up to Halloween. And we were able to do that. And the film was a huge success in a lot of our markets. And of course, nationally, I mean, I think it exceeded its goal, its budget, by leaps and bounds. It's found an audience and then some. And it really does show that if you release a film like that actually with a dedicated theatrical window, the people will come out and watch it.
It's when the movie becomes an event, right? Like it goes beyond just being the visual, which I love. I'm a huge movie fan. I see as many as I can in theaters. And I would say the last real, in my opinion, event that was at a movie theater might have been Endgame. No,
for sure. It's entirely like different film, right? Avengers Endgame versus Terrifier 2.
Yeah.
But you're right. They're appealing to the same type of experience. You're wanting to go out and watch this super gross film in an audience with a full theater reacting to it. I love watching horror films and I love watching comedies in a theater because you can always feel the energy of the audience alongside your own energy. And it's great. There's those are two genres that are almost always improved by watching movies with other people. You can watch a drama by yourself at home and still get a very similar experience to when you watch it in a theater. But with horror and with comedy, you're going to have a lesser experience watching that at home by yourself than you would with watching it in a theater with other people.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And also just to piggyback on the Terrifier, Smile came out around the same time, and it's a completely different distribution process, right? They had tons of marketing. I'm wearing a Astros hat, so I was watching the playoffs and they were doing that viral marketing during the playoffs. And it's just interesting to see how and you could say Terrifier 2 is a subset of the genre because it's more like gore or body horror kind of deals, kind of slasher stuff, like you said, and Smile is more horror, like in the general sense of it. But two different distribution models, yet both of them were successful in their own right. And is that something you see only with probably the horror genre in movies?
Well, yeah, I think it's really interesting that the horror genre as a whole has been experiencing this great health since COVID. People started coming back to movie theaters after COVID. Rom-coms have had a few successes, like The Lost City, but I think the horror genre just behind superhero films, as far as getting people into the theater on a consistent basis, whether it's A Quiet Place 2 or Nope or Smile or now Terrifier 2, people are coming back into theaters to see horror films with audiences. And I think that just goes back to the idea of, that communal experience.
Oh, absolutely. Now, Rob, if you're sitting in your chair right now thinking, I thought I was coming on a comic book podcast, don't worry. You're definitely on it. And all you listeners out there who are thinking the exact same thing, Jesus and I are just a couple of pent up horror movie fanatics, and we've never had somebody like Rob on the show. And, if Jesus wasn't going to ask you about Terrifier 2, I sure as hell was going to. So I'm glad he did. But we are here to also talk about comic books. So let's really roll into comic books with our first segment.
Recent pickups.
That's right, the recent pickup segment, where we're going to talk about something we either recently read or picked up as a collectible. I'm going to kick this week off. Jesus, I hope you don't mind. I know you normally go first, but
Horrible.
Quit stepping on me. I'm going to talk about Werewolf. And that's where with an H. Cool whip. No, sorry. I'm talking about Werewolf, Fangoria's first ever webcomic, and it happened to be written by the one and only Rob. Rob, I just read this for the first time. I was kicking myself when I realized I got on late, unfortunately, because I would have loved to have done this weekly with you. What was the inspiration to throw this on Fangoria digitally, free for everybody to read every single week?
Well, the first thing I learned is that marketing a book on a weekly basis is not fun. Trying to promote this thing every week for 12 weeks out. But the whole idea is I had written this thing and made it last year. It's been done and sitting on a hard drive for about a year. And I came, this is my first comic book. I don't have any audience for my work as a comic book. People know me as a film programmer, especially if they live in Houston. But as a comic book writer, who knows who I am? And so I needed to get this thing out there, and I needed as many people to be able to read it and discover it as possible in the easiest way possible. And, luckily the folks at Fangoria really responded to the material, and they were happy and eager to share it with audiences. And I thought that a webcomic would be the perfect way to do that. It's like the same philosophy as a drug dealer. The first taste is free. So we put it out there online for free. We got them to hopefully got audiences to get to know the characters and get to know the story, and hopefully at this point build an audience, because in the best case scenario, I would love to continue to tell stories with these characters for the rest of my life. I have a deep affinity for werewolves. I have a deep affinity for Texas. And I have a lot of stories I want to tell with the characters in Werewolf. And, I want to continue to do so for a long, long time. And so I was just really looking for a way to introduce people to Larry and Gwen and Sophia, the characters of Werewolf, and get them to hopefully invest in these characters in the story, so that when the time comes to tell the next story and the story after that, we'll have an audience. And I'm hoping it pays off.
Well, yeah,
go ahead, Jesus.
For me, it's already paid off for me, man, in spades. Thank you. Because, I followed you for a long time already, and I got a chance to see as it was happening. And with the frustrations of like, just show the whole page, because you were only showing panels,
Yeah.
But I think that's really cool that I got a chance to see it from that aspect when you were doing it. I got to, pick your brain a little bit on the process and stuff like that. And I'm glad. I thought it was so cool. I sent it to Jake and I said, man, putting it on Fangoria is like super smart. It's super cool, super different. And that's kind of the stuff that I like different stuff that makes sense. And that makes a whole ton of sense, right? Like Fangoria, it's horror stuff. This is a slasher comic book. It's pretty cool, And then, but I agree with you as far as the weekly thing. Like, I wouldn't envy you, having to promote it every week. For me, you had me hooked already, so I was gonna do it. But having to promote it every week, I know can look like from afar like a huge deal to do, right? Every week you're having to promote it. But for us on the opposite end, as a fan, I think that's great that you're able to do that, and it makes sense, like you said, giving this for free, because now I am invested. Now I do want to see more. I want to read more. And the question I have as a fan of not only you but your comic, are we going to get to see a physical form at some point? Is it going to be collected at some point?
Yeah, so I've actually been talking with a couple of different publishers and trying to figure out the best route to put it out there. I've had a couple of publishers reach out. Some that are eager to see it in color, or some that are eager to see it like in a hardcover version. And so I'm really kind of weighing the options and trying to figure out what the best way for this to reach a different audience. So I think a lot of people read it while I was on Fangoria, but I think even more people hopefully will read it once there's a physical copy that's available in stores, in libraries, and on Amazon and whatever. And so I really just want this story to continue to find new audiences that will discover it and appreciate it, because like you said, I do think it works best if binge read. It was written as a novel, emphasis on the novel part of a graphic novel, where it tells a complete story with a beginning, a middle, and an end. And to read it all in one sitting, I think, is the best way to experience the story. And so I hope that people will have a physical copy soon, that they can just sit down and read. I've read it enough times where I know it takes about 2.5 hours to 3 hours to read in one sitting. And so I think that's like the perfect afternoon for people. And hopefully they'll have a physical copy to do that in the comfort of their own homes pretty soon.
Well, you brought something up there that I was going to touch on, was the lack of color for the stories. So this comic book was done in black and white, which I really enjoyed the aesthetic. Once again, when it comes to werewolves or monsters, I always call back to the original monster movies and that side of it. And the black and white certainly makes sense. Werewolf by Night coming out recently, also in black and white. But the thing that you did that I really enjoyed was you were selective when to use color, because it wasn't that you didn't use color. You were just selective about it. And I always I like that. I thought that there were some really smart moves. This is a really smart comic.
Hold on. You're burying the lead, man. It's about a werewolf going crazy at a furry convention.
Yes. Okay, but it's about where the werewolf is.
In a furry convention.
Yeah, well, that's the clever part. So, but the construction of how you build this story and where you take your character, and of course the resolution as well. I mean, the comedy involved here. When you went into it, were you wanting to do, I don't know why horror always goes so well with comedy, but you knew that, did you know that going in, or when you were developing the story, did you say to yourself like, oh, this is too funny not to try?
Yeah. Well, I've always loved horror comedy movies more than horror itself. And I think it goes back to like what I was just talking about, the theatrical experience. I love listening to an audience laugh. Like nothing makes me feel better than sitting in a theater and listening to an audience howl with laughter. And so when I was trying to write my first comic book, I really wanted to kind of hit that same tone, things like Shaun of the Dead or American Werewolf in London, where the horror element is really scary. Like that was the kind of role I gave myself, is that the werewolf can never be played for laughs. I mean, there's a couple times where I kind of bend the rules a little bit there, like when a a werewolf gets kicked in the nuts. That's funny. But I always try to make the werewolf scary and keep the werewolf scary, and everything around the werewolf can be funny. Like there can be jokes and laughs, but the core horror concept has to remain scary. That's what I love about Shaun of the Dead. That's what I love about American Werewolf in London, Evil Dead 2. All the comedies are like that. And so that was the kind of the tone I was really trying to aim towards, is that keep the horror scary, keep the comedy funny, and two flavors can taste good together.
Yeah, you keep the tension. That is something that you don't lose here, is that horror tension buildup that you need, that's required in order to keep people on the edge of their seat. But yeah, you really lighten it, in specific areas with the comedy. And that is why I feel like the structure, it's very smart. So I liked it enough to where I immediately recommended it to my son, who's 14. I sent him the link already, and I was just like, yeah, you got to read this. So I don't think he's all the way through it yet, but kids got homework and stuff to do, so we'll see. But
it's a very brave parent, considering some of the stuff that I put in that comic book.
I agree.
The gutters quote is kind of interesting.
I sent that book to my parents, and that specific joke, I was like, oh, should I send this to them? How do I feel about my mom and dad reading that joke? And then I ultimately decided, it's funny. My mom doesn't really understand how comic books are made. And so she saw that I worked with a letterer. And so she asked me, oh, so the letterer was the one who actually comes up with what the characters say, right? And I was like, yeah, that's the case.
For a few of the words. That works. Just to close on my recent pickup, is there anything cooler than getting a Joe Dante quote to put on the cover of your book?
I still am having trouble believing that he actually read it. So I had built this website that I before it was on Fangoria, that I could send out to people to read the book, and I would see as people read the book, every time a page was hit, I would get a little notification. And one day I was sitting down, and I specifically remember I was watching the new Mortal Kombat movie, and I saw a little ding. Oh, someone's reading the book. And by the time I got out of the movie, the entire book had been finished. And I was like, I wonder who read it. And I found out one of my partners, one of the investors of the book, had actually shared it with Joe Dante, and Joe had read it all in one sitting, and it just blew my mind. And I thought, well, that's neat. And then a couple of days later, we got the quote from Joe, and I was like, holy shit, I cannot believe this actually happened. And I still am waiting to wake up from that, because Joe's a hero of mine. The Howling is one of my favorite werewolf movies of all time. Gremlins and Gremlins 2 are just masterpieces. He's made so many tremendous movies, and the fact that he read the book and dug the book means so much to me.
Yeah, and let's get that quote out there. I should have led with this: a modern werewolf story that's hip and up to date. Joe Dante saying that, that is the highest praise, in my opinion. That's the coolest damn thing, because Gremlins, for the longest time, I don't even know if I have a new. I've kind of grown out of the idea of what's your favorite movie? I'm like, pick a genre, and and then I'll figure it out. But I used to tell everybody Gremlins. They'd be like, that's weird. I'd be like, now you know who I am. But it used to be Gremlins. It's probably still pretty close. I love Gremlins, so that's a really cool thing.
That's pretty dope. And just one other thing about that too, about not necessarily the quote, but the promotion on it was pretty cool, right? You had a billboard that got put up, right, for it.
Yeah. So the book takes place in College Station, which, if you're not familiar with Texas, it's this tiny little town about 2 hours outside of Houston that's home of Texas A&M University. And so and leading up to the promotion of the book, and I was like, what can I do to market this book? Specifically to the College Station crowd, who I know are going to hate this book, because I make fun of the city quite a bit in the book. And so I found out it's really cheap to buy a billboard in College Station. So I bought one not too far from the newspaper office in College Station where I worked, and that inspired a big chunk of the story of Werewolf. So I was very proud of that little bit of marketing.
Gosh, dang it. Cool. That actually reminds me. I was going to ask you the amount of times you actually make fun of town. Are they, so you answered the question. I was going to ask, are they in on that? Like, are these like in jokes that people from the area are going to be like, oh yeah, Rob, this is funny. Or are they like, are they going to be insulted by it?
It depends on who you ask. Like, there's a handful of people who also went to A&M and, lived in College Station who've reached out to me and said, really kind things about the book. But I also sent the book to like the current editor-in-chief of Texas A&M student newspaper and asked them if they would cover it, and never heard back from them. So I think they read the book and realized, this is, we're not going to give this guy any space or any airtime. That said, my biggest fan, the guy who has like reached out to me the most about this book and keeps in touch with me so much, is a furry living in College Station named Cade, who reached out to me at first, like when the book first came out. To think he was upset, he thought I was going to be making fun of furries and being mean to that culture. And once he read the book and realized what I was doing with the story, he was a huge fan and has been really supportive. And I think it's just so cool that there's one specific furry living in College Station who just absolutely loved the book. And I was like, this makes it all worth it for me, at least.
That's pretty awesome, actually. That's pretty cool.
All right. Well, let's move on in this segment. I appreciate you going into deep diving into your story there. And I will recommend to everybody, I'm going to say it now, I'm going to say it again. Everybody should go and seek out Werewolf. You can find it on Fangoria, and there are links all over Rob's Twitter page on where you can find it. And I believe you can go to werewolf.com, or excuse me, werewolfcomic.com. Is that correct, Rob? And that will get you there as well. So moving on, Rob, do you have a recent pickup to talk to us about? Something you've either recently read or collectible you've gotten?
Yeah, I just finished reading the first arc of I Hate This Place by Kyle Starks and Art M. Toplin. Formerly Fuck This Place, which I love that title a lot more. But I Hate This Place from Image Comics is so good. I don't know if you guys have read this series, but it's about these two women that move into a haunted house in the middle of a forest that they inherit. And it's full of aliens and demons and ghosts and monsters. And Kyle Starks is one of my favorite creators working today. His books are just so funny and smart. And Art M, his artistic collaborator on this book, is filling this book with just some of the grossest, coolest looking monsters I've seen in comics in a long time. So I Hate This Place is definitely one of my favorite things I've read in a while.
I am not reading it, but it's been recommended to me already now I've turned into this guy where it's like, if it gets recommended to me like 2 or 3 times, then I read it.
I think it's been recommended on our podcast as well from a guest. I just don't remember which one. I've been wanting to read it. I follow Kyle Starks on Twitter, which, I mean, that doesn't say a lot, but I just know like his stuff. And I've been wanting to read it, but I'm behind on it as far as like I got onto it too late. So now I'm waiting for trades and to get the trades to be able to read it all at one time. But that's definitely on my list of books that I need to pick up to read. And now with your endorsement, I'm definitely going to pick it up as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's a lot of fun. And I think it's going on hiatus until the next arc and next year. So you guys have a couple of months to catch up before the next arc starts.
Hiatus, though. There's always that frustration. There's a couple of books that I'm still waiting. I'm waiting for Ultra Mega to come back from its hiatus. And it's been over a year now. And I'm like, just give me more Ultra Mega and I won't hurt anybody.
And nobody gets hurt.
All right. Well, thank you for sharing that. Jesus, I know you're not used to being the caboose in this situation, so I hope you can handle it. But what do you got?
I got something unique and different. And also, I don't know how to explain it, but I'm doing DC. And I mentioned, and I don't even know if it's going to be previous or after, but I got a CGC shipment in after over a year of submitting my comic books to it. This book is also in the same boat as my Tomb of Dracula #1, where I thought I was going to sell it, but as soon as I got it back, I'm like, man, this is part of the revelation. So I'm talking about a DC book, Green Lantern #59 from 1968, the first appearance of Guy Gardner with a really dope cover on it.
Yeah, it's a great cover. And Guy Gardner, I gotta say, I love to hate that guy.
Yeah. So this was a 3.5 when I sent it in. CGC. I mean, it was a CBCS raw grade of a 3.5, and it came back as a 4.0. So I got a little grade bump with the CGC, maybe for the time that it took. Now, the reason why it was kind of a revelation is because I'm just saying that, guys, that doesn't normally happen. So don't think the longer it takes, you're going to get a better grade. I'm just hoping that that's what it was. But well, in DC, right, we don't really collect a lot of DC. At least me and Jake don't for the most part. We're big Marvel guys, even though we love DC stories, but their comic books just don't sell the same way that Marvel does for the most part, right? Because a lot of their stuff is Golden Age or early Silver Age. That's really hard to find.
The best stuff is hardest to get, right?
Yeah. And so this one is Silver Age, right? 1968. I didn't realize that I really like Green Lantern. I don't know why. I guess seeing the Ryan Reynolds movie kind of like ruined it for me for the most part. But in all the animated movies, I really like Green Lantern and Green Lantern movies. And then I started thinking back. If you know this podcast at all, you know that what got me back into reading comic books in 2009, 2010 was The Blackest Night. And that at its core was a Green Lantern storyline.
Mm-hmm.
So I like Green Lantern more than I realized, and I didn't realize it until I had this book back in my hands. So now I don't know if I'm going to sell this book. I'm having the same issue if I'm going to sell this book or not. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if I do sell it or not. But that's my recent pickup, getting Green Lantern number 59, the first appearance of Guy Gardner back, in a 4.0 from CGC.
You know what, Jesus? Let's leave this. Great book, by the way. Let's leave this up to this is no longer up to you. We're going to leave it up to the listeners. Everybody out there listening, please vote. Should Jesus sell or keep this book? If they say sell it, you have to let it go, Jesus. And if they say keep it, then you'll keep it.
Hey, I'm more than happy to, as you know, and I've even given away books from my PC to the spectators. They got my Iron Man number 282, the first appearance of War Machine, in a giveaway, and I was more than happy to do that. So if somebody, a spectator, is wanting to buy this off of me, I'd probably be more willing to give it to sell it to them than just to sell it outright.
That is, I did not say that. I did not try to set you up for a sales pitch. Everybody vote for him to sell it, and we'll be good. But that is going to do it for the recent pickup segment, which for everybody out there who knows, that can only mean
Grail Tale.
Grail Tale.
Grail Tale. Grail Tale. Grail Tale.
Everybody's favorite segment, the Grail Tale segment. Rob, this is where we turn our mics off. We're gonna go to sleep. We're gonna turn our mics off. We're not even gonna be paying attention anymore. We're gonna let you tell our listeners all about your Grail Tale. I'm just joking about us sleeping. We're gonna be very participants here. But you're going to tell us about your comic book or your collectible grail, something that means a lot to you, or maybe something that you don't have yet that you're looking to get, maybe a white whale there. It's kind of whatever you make of it. So, Rob, the mic's yours.
Yeah, so I'll be honest. I don't collect physical comic books as much as I used to. When I was in college, I was buying a ton of books. Like I've maxed out credit cards, going to the shop every week and buying books. But now I'm such an indecisive reader, and I travel a lot, and so I started like just loading up my my iPad with Comixology, and you know I buy a ton of my stuff digitally and read it that way. But the one thing I still do collect is original artwork, and I love just whether it's a painting or a piece of comic book artwork or a poster or something like that. And the grail I have is to own a piece of original art by Stephen Gamel. He's the artist who did scary stories to tell in the dark, which you know most of us have read as kids.
Yes,
his artwork is just so beautiful, and I would love to own a piece of his original artwork, but it's way out of my price range.
Gotcha. So we got a white whale situation here.
Yeah, we do. What does something like that, like a piece of art of his, go for roughly?
I once found a piece on eBay, and I was engaged in a bidding war, and it got up to about $800. And I was like, what am I doing spending $800 on a piece of artwork? That's insane. And so I started to actually pray that somebody would outbid me, because I was starting to have like serious regrets that I was about to spend that much money on a piece of artwork. And thankfully at the last minute, sniped me, and I slept really easy that night.
What did it sell for, though?
His stuff goes for way too expensive, too much money.
Do you recall what the final sale was on that one that you got at sniped on?
I think it ended up going for like $5,000.
Oh God!
It was multiple people sniping. I mean, one of his biggest collectors is like Guillermo del Toro owns a ton of his books. So
yeah,
I mean, it's like Hollywood people who are buying this guy's stuff, not a film programmer based out of Houston, Texas. But I wish that they would just at least like release screen prints of his artwork. Like I would happily own like a poster size art like from like Mondo or somebody like that. It doesn't need to be original. I would just love to put something of his on my wall.
I was gonna say that's interesting. Is he, by the way, is he still with us? Is he still alive?
He is, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so is he still producing new stuff?
I don't know. That's a good question. I haven't seen anything new from him in a while.
Because I'd be surprised that Guillermo del Toro didn't get him involved in the movie at all, in some of the artwork. Maybe they did, and I just didn't see any of that. But I almost assumed that there would be new artwork for that movie when he did that, and it was all stereotypical movie poster stuff, which I wasn't thrilled about. But Guillermo brought the Guillermo that everybody knows and loves in the movie, so it's still worth going to see. But
I was just happy that they restored the illustrations to the books, because in the years before that movie came out, they had replaced all the artwork in those books with like a very non-scary artwork. Mm-hmm. I think because parents were complaining that their kids were getting nightmares. But like shortly before the movie came out, they went back and re-released the books with the original artwork, and that made me happy.
Oh yeah, I terrified my kids with those. God, that was the best.
If I remember correctly, I recently saw an interview with Guillermo del Toro where he goes into his house, because you know how he has all these collectible things in his house. And if I remember correctly, he talks about that artwork that you're talking about, and that he knows of one other person that's, I guess I would say, like at his level, like you said, the Hollywood people, that bids against him. And so he knows it's either going to be that guy that gets it or him that gets it. And it just depends on his mood that day or whatever, of how much he's bidding or not when it comes up for sale. But I remember specifically him talking about that. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to double check it. But if I'm not mistaken, it's this artwork that you're talking about. And there's another person that has that affinity as well. So it's y'all three that are bidding against each other.
No, I'm sure there's a lot of other people like me who would love to own it, just can't afford it. I like going back to like a grail, like this isn't like a physical grail, but like a emotional grail would have a chance to go and visit Bleak House, the Guillermo del Toro's house that you were just talking about. It's like he has a whole house that's dedicated to his collection, and it's just like I've seen pictures of it. It's just filled with artwork and libraries and statues. I was fortunate enough to go and visit the LA Art Museum back when they hosted like a small selection of his collection at their museum, and it blew me away. I got yelled at by a museum guard for just getting too close to the exhibits, but I couldn't help it. Like I would just stare at something and I would just find myself leaning in because I just wanted to soak it up. And like multiple times, like a guard had to just yell at me, like, get back behind the line. And it wasn't that I was trying to touch this stuff. I just like was like a moth to the flame. It was just so beautiful.
You didn't have like super glue or tomato soup in your hand, did you?
No.
Thank God.
Is Guillermo del Toro one of your favorite directors?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Pretty much everything that he's done, I absolutely love. And, it's not just film, but like he's written books. He's, produced the stuff he's produced is always amazing. Like he's just, everything he touches is just golden for me. So he's definitely a hero of mine.
So it's got to at least be a really cool experience for you that you got outbid. You got sniped by Guillermo del Toro on that eBay.
Probably, yeah. Probably.
That's what it is. That's what happened.
Well, like I used to collect a lot of 35 millimeter prints. So I used to buy a lot of film prints. And one time I got outbid by Chloe Moretz Grace. Currently is also a big 35 millimeter collector.
Really?
And yeah, I always thought that was kind of cool. I was like, yeah, if I'm going to get outbid by somebody, it's Hit Girl's a great person to get outbid on.
That's awesome. Yeah, and it's probably going to be hard for us to help you track down that white whale, but we'll do our best. We'll send the spectators out. Everybody out there, please be.
I'll text Guillermo right now.
You'll just borrow from your collection. You actually had mentioned that you thought the artwork was beautiful, and I thought that was an interesting description for it. Considering what I know of the artwork anyway, and I can't say I'm fully aware of all of his art, but what I know of the artwork is it's terrifying.
Haunting is a good word.
Haunting.
Yeah. Oh, like scary things can be beautiful too. It's like, it's scary. It's grotesque. It's nightmarish, but I think there's like a beauty to it because it's like, his artwork is like this, like marriage of like shadow and light and dark and white. It's just I don't know, it looks like something pulled from a nightmare. It looks like something that should exist but should not exist at the same time. Mm-hmm. I just really love the way he captures shadow and detail. Like there's just like little choices that he makes in all of his artwork that just really seals the deal for me. It's just, I don't know, it's just like something that is pulled from like the primordial ooze that humanity crawled from. It's I don't know, it's terrifying, but it's beautiful too.
And I don't have any of the artwork up in front of me, but all I can remember is his use of negative space as well with white, and how it can be, because they're not using shadows, like you said, they're not dark, right? Like they're not these super dark haunting images. They're actually, some of them are very just bright and open as far as the visual, but that use of white, that use of negative space is haunting. And that's why beauty can describe it, but I would I think the words I would use, nightmare fuel? Yeah. I mean, that's probably what I would go with.
Yeah. I think that's a good description.
Yeah, it is haunting. Don't look at it if you want to go to sleep and not have a nightmare.
Well, being like the werewolf aficionado that I am, there's actually a book called Meet the Werewolf that Steven did the illustrations for. Like everybody knows this stuff from Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, but like he did a lot of other books, and this Meet the Werewolf book is like also another like holy grail of mine. I was actually able to find this on eBay a couple of years ago for a pretty good price, like $13, but it's just filled with like that same type of black and white watercolor illustrations, but all werewolves. So I was in heaven with this book.
Very nice. If I may, Frank Frazetta does have some really incredible werewolf covers as well.
Oh yeah, Frank Frazetta, Mike Plug, Bernie Wrightson. I ordered a new book on Kickstarter of Bernie Wrightson illustrations, and I went downstairs to go check the mail today, and it wasn't there, even though it said it was delivered. So I'm gonna have to do some hunting around tomorrow in my mailroom to find out where this book is.
Real quick too, you said Plug. Is that why you chose Plug for one of your characters' names? Yeah.
Sophia Plug is one of the characters, and she's named after Mike Plug, who was one of the original artists on Werewolf by Night, and just draws like beautiful, perfect werewolves.
Yeah, for sure.
That's what everybody wants, right? Perfect werewolves.
Yeah.
Oh well, hold on. Since I have you on, because I consider myself a aficionado as well, maybe even a connoisseur. I don't know if I'm there yet of the lycanthrope and lycanthropy. What are your, obviously, like, you have your classics, right? American Werewolf in London and Paris, the recent one. And then you have the really, really modern take on it, which is the Kate Beckinsale led, what is it called? Underworld? Is it Underworld?
Yeah.
I always forget the name. What is your thought process on those films, Rob?
They're fun. I like Underworld Evolution, the second one, a lot. And not because of the werewolves, but because Bill Nighy turns into like that giant bat creature, which I thought was really cool design.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Like I don't really love when they take like a vampire or a werewolf story and turn it into an action film. Like I love the Blade movies, but like Underworld and a bunch of the other ones that came around that same time just don't really do it for me. Like Van Helsing, like was that where like it took like really cool monsters, but it was just like a really generic action story.
Yeah.
one of the best modern werewolf films that like very few people have seen, but more people should, is called Good Manners. It's a Brazilian werewolf film, Brazilian werewolf musical. And it's about this, this woman who has to take care of a werewolf baby. And it's just this really beautiful, scary, haunting, sad werewolf movie. Like, I don't know. I have this like rules of werewolves where a good werewolf story has to be sad. It has to be a tragedy, because the very concept of werewolves, I think, is a tragedy. It's someone who's cursed to become a monster against their will. It has to have really good werewolf design. And, most werewolf movies don't hit that mark because they just don't have the budget. And it has to be funny, because I think there's something inherently silly about a guy turning into a werewolf or a woman. And so I think there has to be like an offset where you give the audience something to laugh at. Otherwise, they're going to find something to laugh at themselves. And Good Manners is tragic. It has a really cool werewolf design, and there's a comedy in it. And so it's just a perfect werewolf movie in my book.
Nice. I'm definitely going to check it out now. As an aficionado, I'd be remiss if I did not.
Well,
I think it's on Shudder. So.
Oh, nice. Even better.
This brings up a very good opportunity. Jesus, thank you for pointing this out. Rob, I know we're not here to just exclusively talk about werewolves, but it is so rare that we do have a actual real werewolf aficionado and not somebody playing at one. So let's I'm curious. There's a couple of movies, one of which we actually recently watched for a Halloween horror movie special that we did called Werewolves Within, which that was actually the movie that I specifically watched. We each gave each other homework of what to watch. So it was that one. And then also we didn't watch it for that, but it was one that I had considered assigning to somebody else, which was The Wolf of Snow Hollow. Both kind of lower budget independent films that have come out in the last couple of years. What are your recent? I mean, I know you said Good Manners was your favorite recent or modern, werewolf movie, but how would you rank those two?
Yeah, so it's funny. Like both of those movies came out while I was working on Werewolf, and I got really nervous with both of those movies because, like, I'm doing a horror comedy werewolf whodunit, and there's two movies that are also horror comedy werewolf whodunits, and so I watched both of those movies almost like with my eyes covered by my hands, like afraid that they were going to cover similar ground that I was trying to cover and beat me to the punch. Well, thankfully, they both are like much different films than what I was doing, but I really enjoy them both. So Wolf of Snow Hollow, I love Jim Cummings. Like, I think he's a great performer. He's a great writer. His character work is just outstanding. There was like very few people who like really capture that angry, impotent, man more than Jim Cummings does. And I just really love what he does. And I really dug Wolf of Snow Hollow for that. Like him just freaking out and getting angry and like feuding with his dad, the great Robert Forster, is great. And, I didn't love the werewolf twist of the movie just because I'm a werewolf purist, but I thought it was a really fun, cool movie. And Werewolves Within, I think, is hysterical. Like, it's just a tremendous cast. And, I'm a huge fan of Josh Rubin, the director, and what he's done. Like Scare Me is a recent movie that he made that is a ton of fun. And I think it did a great job of like doing a really solid werewolf whodunit, because it's not easy to do a whodunit and to do werewolves, specifically a werewolf whodunit. There's this movie from Amicus Studios called The Beast Within. It's like the epitome of werewolf whodunits, because it actually has a moment like about 30 minutes before the movie ends where they do what they call a werewolf break, and the movie actually stops, and the movie encourages you to yell out who you think the werewolf is. And
Nice.
It's like this great gimmick where, like, if you're watching it in a theater, you basically have a theater of people all yelling names of who they think the werewolf is. And then they reveal who the werewolf is. It's like, I wish more movies would do that. Like Knives Out 2 should have a murderer break where you get to yell out who you think the killer is.
That is so brilliant. I just looked at it. That's from 1982. Is that the one you're talking about? The Beast Within? Dang.
Yeah.
That's the werewolf break.
Oh no, sorry, no, it's The Beast Must Die.
The Beast Must Die. Okay, well, it's crazy that there is a werewolf movie called The Beast Within as well from 1982.
The Beast Within is by Philippe More, who directed Howling 2 and Howling 3, and I once emailed Philippe to ask if I could book Howling 3 because he owned the theatrical rights to the movie, and he started talking to me about werewolves in a way that I really quickly realized, oh wait, no, Felipe believes werewolves exist, and he believes there's like a hidden society of werewolves out there who are like controlling certain segments of society. And I thought that was so amazing. I wanted to ask him like 1,000 questions about this, but I realized he was just getting tired of me asking him questions about.
They're the actual Illuminati.
Yeah. No, he was like, yeah, you work for the Alamo Drafthouse. You know, werewolves fought in the Alamo. Did you know that? No, tell me more, please.
I shouldn't have laughed like that, but oh my God. When something like that happens, I just want to turn to those people and be like, you realize you are a human rabbit hole that I am about to fall down, correct?
Yeah.
Well, that's that. I mean, that would make a lot of sense though, because Abraham Lincoln was a vampire hunter. That movie says so. I mean, we're on the right track. We're onto something right now.
We are unveiling the curtain that is covering up the Illuminati, the werewolf Illuminati. Somebody write that story out there.
I mean, they would say that's like the cows from Chick-fil-A, right? Like they would say that it's the vampires out there, so nobody looks at werewolves. Come on now,
exactly.
It just writes itself, Jake.
Maybe it would. All right. Well, there's no good way to transition, but we really need to. So let's get to our third and final segment.
Speculation.
The speculation segment. And this is the one where we're going to talk about something that may or may not have future value. We're speculating on something going up. And for all you out there who like to help the hobby pay for itself, this is the segment for you. So, Jesus, I'm going to let you kick this one off.
All right. So I try to tie in everything together as far as, we have Rob here who does, film programming, big into film, big into movies. Nostalgia, right? A lot of nostalgia stuff that I like to talk about. And then obviously potential for, an increase in value of certain comic books. So with that being said, I am putting my shingle out there that this is prime for a reboot. This franchise is prime for reboot. I didn't even know it was based on this. And also because, one of the books came up because a artist that recently passed away had something to do with this, but later on in the characters, I guess, run of comic books. And I'm talking about none other than The Mask. So The Mask came out in 94. There was an animated series in 96, 97, I believe. Then The Son of the Mask came out in 05 to the opposite of much fanfare. And it was in a comic book first. It was loosely based on comic books, and there's actually 2 comic books that it's based on. One of them is called The Mask with the Q-U-E at the end. And the first appearance of that character is Dark Horse Presents number 10 from September of 1987. You can get that book in high grade for under $40 right now. And then the second one is as what's called the Big Head version, which is kind of more of what we're used to in the movies and in the animated series. And that's in Mayhem number 1 from 1989. That book is like $20 and under. So if you get any one of these books and they reboot it, which as we know, these companies want franchises or something to reboot that's already been done. And I think that there's a potential different take on it. I don't know why friend of the show, Adi Shankar, came to mind with it. Maybe a combo live action animation at the same time, different take on it. And then this book will rise, because who didn't like Jim Carrey as the Mask? I mean, who didn't?
Oh, for sure. I was obsessed with The Mask growing up. It was such a great movie. And the comics are super weird and scary. Like you could do like a really cool horror comedy version of it that leans into like the Freddy Krueger Nightmare on Elm Street element, because they were like rated R violent. I mean, The Mask would kill people.
Yeah, you turn into
which
a
I guess he does
slasher.
in the movies. Yeah,
That'd be pretty cool.
Well, it's a take on Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, really, in so many ways. So great spec, and those are comics that I completely agree are sort of under the radar. So good job, Jesus. 5 points for you.
Thank you. I win.
Not yet. Now you can't declare
dang
yourself
it.
the winner yet. Rob, you are up next. What are you thinking here?
All right. So with the caveat that I don't collect, and so I don't know like market value of most of the stuff, but I'm just gonna throw this out there because like I believe in like the secret, like the Oprah Winfrey secret, where if you can actualize something by talking about it. I just really want the Marvel Studios to make a Great Lakes Avengers series, and so I'm going to say read those books, like the Dan Slott Great Lakes Avengers comics from like the early 2000s, because I loved those books when they were coming out, and I think they were like a series of one shots, maybe like a mini series, but they were so funny, and like Squirrel Girl was a big part of that, and she's become a really popular character who I'm really surprised Marvel Studios hasn't greenlit a Squirrel Girl TV show
or something, right? Like it's the character's actually really popular. People are almost demanding it, and yet they I don't know, they're letting the tension build up on it.
But whether it's Squirrel Girl or the Great Lakes Avengers, like I think those books are always really fun, and I just want Marvel Studios to greenlight a show and those books to become really valuable, just so I can say I made this happen by appearing on your podcast. So that's what I'm going to say.
Well, you are in luck because we recently had a MCU writer on the show who I'm sure is now a dedicated listener. And he's probably thinking, the Great Lakes Avengers is exactly what I need to pitch to Kevin.
Kevin, make it happen.
Yeah. Nice. Very good job. I'm going to go with 8 points for you, Rob. You're in the lead. Okay, so I'm up, and I am going. This is a nostalgia thing for me. This is something very recently that was announced, and I couldn't have been more excited about it. Hey, Zeus, I was a little disappointed. I texted you about it, and you just did like the thumbs up emoji thing on the text, and I was like, all right, well, he clearly doesn't care, not like I do. And I'm talking about Gears of War. They had just announced that Gears of War is they're going to make a show. I believe Netflix, and that is really good news for me because I have a lot of fond memories staying up extremely late at night back in like 2007 or 8 or whenever the first game came out, playing Gears of War with my brother, who did not live with me. He lived a few blocks away, actually, strangely enough. And my wife would yell at me. We were newly married, and she'd come into where I was playing at like 2 a.m. She'd be like, "You're still playing video games?" And I swear, if you bring it up right now, she will tell you Gears of War nearly caused a divorce. I don't think it was that bad. But there were a few times where she would catch me at like 4 a.m. and she'd be like, "If you don't go to bed now, it's over." So, but
she didn't specify what though. It could have been your life.
Exactly. And to be honest, she was sleeping anyway. It wasn't like I was waking her up. She just really, she was a fun hater. So they recently announced Gears of War is going to become a series, which I'm excited about. Honestly, Dave Bautista should be the lead. That's just that's my thought on it. And Gears of War #1 is a comic book that was released adjacent to the video game series. It was written by Joshua Ortega and art was Liam Sharp and came out in 2008. This is, last I checked, this is a very affordable book, right? This is a book you can get in a high grade pretty cheap. It was a DC book, so I don't know what the publication numbers were on this. Because it was it was a series, but because it was support a video game and you haven't really seen a lot of like continuation on the series, I don't know how big the numbers were for it, but I do think this is something fun to have for me personally, just because of the nostalgia for the game. I really want to get my hands on one of these books. And, hopefully we're going to get a good show. Now, video games being turned into TV shows by Netflix don't really have the best track record, but I've got high hopes.
Man, so much to say on this, man. Halo just got turned into a show. Apparently has some decent reviews on it. I still haven't seen it, even though Halo is my, number one gaming thing that I've ever done. Gears of War, I was in the same boat. And I'll tell you, one of the things that I always remember Gears of War is they had a new game mode, which was the Horde. I don't know if you remember that, Jake.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember the Horde?
I remember the Horde.
Okay. So I thought that was going to be the next big thing in gaming. And I was like, oh, this is so cool. I would play with my friends at night. It was, how many levels can you get to? Then I think Modern Warfare did it later with zombies and then, something came around with Battle Royale and just killed the Horde and no longer. So I missed shot on that one as far as that being the future of gaming. But I do remember Gears of War fondly, a really fun game. It has a pretty cool storyline from what I remember. But like you said, it's not the best transition to TV, which I would hope. I mean, they already have a lot of lore built in. I don't know why they're missing on them, because there's a lot of them that have really good storylines that they could make into shows, into movies, and to what is it called? Not exploit. What is it? Take advantage of the built-in audience. So I really like that pick. I apologize for giving you the thumbs up. I will give you the thumbs down next time.
I just wanted you to say, hey, that sounds really cool, but all you gave me was the thumbs up. So I started talking to somebody else about it.
And did they have the insight that I had, Jake? No,
they didn't. It was my brother. He was like, yeah, that's cool. He at least gave me the
that's cool,
what I wanted. So Rob,
no flame emoji.
Yeah, exactly. Rob, you a big Gears of War guy?
I did play the game when it came out. I don't remember a single thing about it, to be honest. So I'm not the guy to talk to. I remember the guy kind of looked like Dave Bautista before I knew who Dave Bautista was. And I remember we were fighting bugs, aliens.
Bugs.
Aliens. Yeah, an alien horde that they came from the ground, essentially.
Yeah, it was fun. I remember digging it. I was always more of a Halo guy than a Gears of War guy, but my heart at that time was Guitar Hero. That was my video game addiction of choice.
Yeah, you were a Guitar Hero superstar, right?
I was, yeah.
Hey, nice. we were all there at some point in time. I know I was. Guitar Hero 2 was when I really hit my stride.
Why don't they bring that series back?
I'm sure they will. They will now after we've mentioned it here.
There you go. There you go. What happens on this podcast comes to fruition. We're like Zoltar.
Yeah, we're like Zoltar. Okay, well, 10 points to me. I win again. Big surprise to everybody else. But Rob, super close second. Good job on that. But that is going to come to that's going to bring a close to this episode of Spec Tales. Rob, thank you so much for joining. It was a lot of fun. It was really cool to dive into Werewolf, which I'm going to remind everybody, go to werewolfcomic.com. And where can they find you on the internets? I'm
on all the social media apps, Twitter, Rob Saucedo 2500, at Instagram, I think it's Rob Sauce 2500, and Facebook. If you go to werewolfcomic.com, you'll see all the social media links for both myself and Deb the artist. Jack is thankfully for him not on social media. He made the right choice there. But for all the rest of us who are addicted to it, you can find Deb in my social media links.
Awesome. Go check that out. Go give him a follow, and absolutely go and read Werewolf by Rob. So definitely go read that. Thank you very much, Rob, for being on. And everybody, thank you for listening. That'll conclude this episode. We'll catch you all next week.
Well, the one thing that was really important to me was that the artistic team got paid up front. So I self-financed the entire book. I paid Deb and Jack out of my own pocket while the book was being made. And so I wanted to make sure Deb got taken care of, and I wanted to make sure that Jack was paid. And so, I paid them out of my own pocket. And so when it came time to release the book, I was kind of the one spearheading that decision as how it was going to get put out there. And, I think that at that point, they had done this thing a year ago, so they were just eager for it to be shared with an audience. So when I told them, oh yeah, we're going to be releasing it for free on Fangoria, they were like, great. People will actually be able to see what I did a year ago.